Why is it easier to come up with ideas than it is to actually work on them? Why does goal planning motivate you but execution just overwhelms you? And why is researching your idea so enjoyable, so fun, yet when it's time to start? Impossible. And here's the kicker: why, despite being so intelligent and smart, you can't figure out how to get yourself moving. Look, in this video, you're going to discover something pretty wild. How your intelligence is actually working against you. There's a vital skill set needed for success that you've completely missed. And it's something that schools have trained you to ignore, and this skill. It's something that every professional athlete focuses on. Something they've trained for their entire career, and we can steal it. But first, let's rewind. What happened as you became more intelligent over the years? Well, it probably looks something like this, so let's look at the screen here. Your ability to analyze and strategize became your superpower. Research, reading, planning, all very enjoyable, right? And you probably progressed pretty quickly. You unconsciously allocated more energy to it because you got better at it. And it's kind of fun when you're seeing improvement, so what happens? You're putting in lots of time and effort into this thing. Study environments are really fertile ground for you to actually get better at this. You're exposed to it at school, college, even at work. And as time went on, you doubled down. Not realizing all of this came at a significant cost. And when it comes time to executing, when you actually have to do the hard thing, emotions flood your system: risk, danger, fear of failure, judgment. And it's hard to think clearly because you've got all this going on in your head. Some kind of failure. Why? Because in this state you're actually performing. You're not studying anymore. And it's not just athletes, musicians, and professionals who experience this. This fear, the sweaty palms, the nervousness, the anxiousness, this stressful state, it's something you'll experience whenever you need to do something of significant importance to you. And this is where I always got stuck. So have you ever spent years planning something that never shipped? Well, I actually started my YouTube channel in 2006. You'll see the date here. You can actually check that live if you want. I didn't start posting videos until 2019. So I had all of this time planning, researching, thinking about things, and I didn't find a way to make progress. And hopefully in this video, you'll totally see why this happened. It's something I've tried to work through. And what I noticed was like having two versions of yourself. This version I called the strategist, and this one, the performer. The strategist is highly skilled at planning, an intelligent, deep thinker. Great at strategy and complexity, the performer executes the plan well. At least tries to. They experience performance nerves and feel the risks of actually doing the thing. Now here's what happens over time. The difference in skill sets becomes quite apparent. If you follow the green line here, you see the strategist over time gets better and better at a faster rate. They're at a level 9 or above, meanwhile your performer's side. Very low capability. And I actually show that it starts higher because when you're a baby, you generally just do things. You don't have the ability to overthink yet. So what actually happens is you get worse over time, especially as your strategist gets stronger. Now I'm going to put these little coaching insights throughout. They're reminders for me, but also something I can share with you. I had a client, Katie. She was really successful at launching company products, but couldn't even make her own website. Really interesting. She spent a long time designing and developing her website, but couldn't actually click publish. The result, it's a combination of both of them. Progress depends on the strategist and the performer. And there's no point extending the strategist because they're already extremely competent. The focus should be improving the performer. This is vital. Because without a performer, you won't get any results. From a coaching perspective, I've rarely ever seen an overdeveloped performer. I just see hundreds of people who have completely maxed out their strategist. And this is unacceptable because you won't get any results. So what you want is for the strategist and performer to be improving over time together. You want to try and get both of them to a level 9 or above. Now obviously this is an arbitrary scale, but you should be able to feel it. The clients I work with struggle with this all the time. And in fact, the more intelligent they are, the harder this is. I actually had a client, Helen, who was trying to publish her work online. She was completely paralyzed at the thought of posting on social media, to the point where she'd make so many excuses to get around it. And what we did was use this process that I'm going to go through in this video to unlock her capability and train the performer side of her so that she could do it. We'll go over her story a bit later. And it actually resulted in her getting into the local news, which was crazy considering how terrified she was. And it shows up absolutely everywhere. That was one example, but I tend to see this with all my clients. And I've worked with loads of them. Now this is all part of a system I like to follow called the dark system. We're in stage 2, and it's all about initiating and taking action. You want to know how severe this problem is for you. I've got an assessment that scores you. There'll be more on this later, but you can check it out in the description. Just remember that, we'll come back to it later. What's interesting about this guy, you should be familiar, Roger Federer. Well, he's a champion and he's won many, many titles. He also has this strategist and performer inside him. Now we can think about the strategist in the preparation stage and the performer in the execution stage. So we can divide them into two. On the strategist side, this is where he does lots of practice and training drills to iron out all of his weaknesses and develop a strong ability to perform on stage later when he has to compete. And this is him playing in a tournament. This is the performer stage. So we really want to divide these two sides of you completely. The strategist develops plans for the performer. Now I really want to emphasize this. This is not developing plans for someone else. This is developing plans for the other part of you, right? We'll come to why this is so important in a bit. They're extremely skilled at thinking. And a good job for them is an effective plan, a plan that will actually get executed. The performer, they're a doer. Their focus must be around managing their emotions on the stage. They're affected by what's around them, the environment. You can imagine the weather in this case. A good job is taking that plan the strategist develops and executing it. Now here are the tendencies. The strategist likes to create complex plans that look amazing on paper. Think flowcharts, mind maps, complex articulate pages and pages of planning. They're also planning while fairly relaxed. Now this is a blind spot, which we'll come to later. And they often get frustrated when the plan is not executed how they imagine it should be. The performer, on the other hand, they get overwhelmed by complex plans. They get frustrated with unnecessary detail. And they procrastinate when they get that frustration. That's when they'll be going on YouTube, scrolling on TikTok and everything like that. If they can't work together, there won't be any success. So we can imagine your output or your effectiveness. This is what you think you're going to be. This is the reality. And what we want to do is imagine you are this person here. This is the performer. You want to help this person out. Otherwise, this will just happen forever and you'll be stuck here. And you've probably lived there, so you know what I'm talking about. You're already familiar with this setup. When you get to this point, when you're trying to do something like posting on social media, going for a job interview, applying for jobs, building a product, selling a service, anything like this, all you can imagine is this metaphor of falling off this little rope bridge. You experience fear, uncertainty, self-doubt, lack of confidence, imposter syndrome, and overwhelm. And these are really powerful emotions. We don't want to experience them unnecessarily. So we will tend to avoid at this point. Now I'll introduce you to a mental trap you probably fall into. It's the fake action trap. What tends to happen is when you're avoiding, you don't want to just leave it in a vacuum. You'll do other things to make yourself look busy, so you've got a viable excuse. You'll be on YouTube, you'll be reading books. You'll be looking at self-help, self-development content, TikTok, and planning. This is something I observe with lots of clients, and it gets quite creative what people get up to. They often get stuck in knowledge acquisition cycles, buying more courses, reading more books, watching more YouTube videos. I mean even things like this video, so just be mindful about this. Make this your last one, shiny object syndrome. When you see a new project come online and you think, right, I want to do that one. It looks more fun, planning forever, building portfolio projects indefinitely. You can always polish up a project, it could always be better. And that's before they actually apply for jobs. Looking for perfect job descriptions but not reaching out. Perfecting their work but never shipping it. If you've built a product, you've built an MVP or something like that. Now here's another coaching insight I often hear. I need to take one more course before I do the thing. The strategist never knows when to actually stop. This is a really big problem. You end up in what I call the infinite strategist loop. You plan something. You research it, you find some flaws in your plan, you tweak it. Then you plan again, you do more research, and so on, it just ends up going on. You'll end up in that situation, which was very similar to me with YouTube. That's why I got stuck there for over 10 years. It's crazy. So how do you break your patterns and start taking action? And what is the actual problem? Why can't I just do it? Why is it so much harder than it should be? Well, what happens at this point is we feel this spotlight effect. It's like everyone's watching us. So it makes all of these things 10 times worse. Now projects are often 95% ready and totally good to go. That's what I see when people come to me. But the performer side of you is terrified of judgment. But this just won't change. You'll always have some version of this. At this point, what we often see is what I call emotional saturation. It's where when you're trying to do a thing, you've got the task, but the amount of energy that's being consumed is this much. The rest of it, all of this fear, all of these emotions. And it causes you to lose clarity of thought, which is a really big problem. So on the surface, a simple straightforward action, just step forward, becomes extremely difficult. This is what it feels like at the edge. Now if you've ever tried to do a cliff jump or jump into deep water or a bungee jump, this is what you'll feel like. Walking suddenly becomes impossible. Remember who this is, it's the performer. It's not the strategist doing this, it's the performer. At this point where you're emotionally saturated, your brain has reduced capacity to think. Emotions will flood your system and you'll feel overwhelmed. You'll get mental fog, anxiety, and stress all at this moment. You will be much less effective, and this is really important to remember. The performer never feels ready, it's not a bug. It's a feature of performance. That's why professional athletes and performers do so much training to ready themselves for performance. Because they know that there is this drop. They train the brain under emotional load and not avoid it. Remember that. So what are the conditions for success? Let's look at when it works. What we really want is most of your energy on the task, the green bit, and a healthy amount of fear and emotions, but not overwhelming. So how do we deal with it? We need to first accept you are in this performance state, this new mental state. Now the crazy thing is with a physical thing like a sport or a bungee jump, it kind of makes sense. We have a good intuition around this. We understand we're performing. But when we want to write a video or write a script or write a blog article or send an email to someone or apply for a job, we don't realize that we're doing the same thing. We're actually performing, and that's why we feel the same way. So we should treat it that way. We want to go from preparation to performance. Think about shifting from strategist to performer, the preparation stage. This is when you can leverage your intellectual capabilities. You can think and strategize. But you should be thinking and strategizing to help the performer perform, not just for the sake of planning. The performance stage, this is going to be extremely emotional. And you will be at the mercy of the experience. Be careful. Knowing the state you're in will help with the solutions. Don't fight. Work with it. Remember, you are performing. There's no way around this. Assume your emotions will flood your system. There's no way to get around that. Assume you will be much less effective at the jump point. Create a system that moves you in this reality. So we're not going to remain in this delusion where you're in this proverbial classroom where the strategist is really comfortable and safe. No, that's not reality. The reality is you are on that cliff face and you have to walk over that rope bridge. So we have to create a good plan that will prepare you for that situation. Remember who you're working with here. Think about upgrading the performer. What we're trying to do is take your poor performer. They're at level 0 or 1 and you've just left them there and improve them. First, we want to map the performer. We want to figure out where they are. Because if we can understand where they are, we can figure out what they need to improve. Now you may have seen some version of this graph, right? But we can actually use this. You've got your performer here. Where are they? Let me quickly talk you through this. Over time, there's a line somewhere here where if you are perfectly on it, it's the right balance of being progressive, challenging, and engaging. And this is exposure over time. So at the beginning, you want small exposure. And as you get better, you stretch yourself. You can be exposed to more and more of the activity, more difficult things. But if you give too much too soon, you'll feel overwhelmed and anxious. If it's not enough, you've probably felt this too. It's not motivating. And if you're fairly ambitious, you won't like being here. I don't like being here, but I also hate being here too. When you create these really big plans done by the strategist, because they're in this relaxed state while they're in the classroom designing their plans, making it look really pretty, your big plans just go up this scale here. You are forgetting that it's going to be really difficult for the performer. Now we know this happens in real life. I've just taken an example of a firefighter. The strategist side is coming up with all of the training drills, the training plans, giving them exposure at appropriate levels, and giving them clear and precise instructions to allow them to be prepared for when they have to perform. And they don't have all of that time. It's going to be under stress. It's going to be all about what the plan says. The performer provides feedback to the strategist. It identifies blind spots and weaknesses too, so that you can go back and train. And you want to go through this cycle here. We have to internalize these two characters and build a strong and healthy relationship with them. But what is the mistake we usually make? What normally happens is the strategist creates complex plans that look good on paper with no empathy for the performer. They plan with really big goals in mind because they imagine their job is to make a really fast, easy plan to get to the end goal. Not helping the performer. They get annoyed at the performer when they don't finish the thing. And they will punish the performer by making them feel really guilty. The performer's side gets really overwhelmed by the complex plans. They try but get stressed because they can't execute the plan. They make errors due to how difficult it is, all mixed with the emotions they're experiencing. And they get frustrated, and they'll just avoid the plan. So that's actually what happens. They'll end up back on YouTube scrolling. And then the guilt cycle will clearly spiral downwards. If you imagine these two people as having a relationship, you've got a recipe for a toxic one. There will be no learning, no progress, and no growth. And just think about this, we're talking about your internal state. So that's what's going to happen. Hopefully you can start to see that this is really an opportunity to show genuine and practical self-compassion. Everyone talks about self-compassion. Well, not everyone, but some people do. But this is a practical way of doing it. One where you won't be going through such heavy guilt cycles, and you can actually work together. Now I know this is an internal state, so you have to imagine this. But you can work together, and you can get the outcomes you want. Think about it like this. When they're working together, the strategist is saying, "I've got your back, performer. I'll make a plan that will be good. I've added tweaks based on your feedback the last time. I could clearly see you were nervous, so I've made it even simpler for you. Try this version, let me know how it is." There's this internal feedback loop. The performer is saying, "Thanks for making it easier, let me have a go. I'll try again, I think those updates will probably help. I'll let you know what works and what doesn't." Now I don't know what you might be thinking, am I crazy at this point? Imagining these two characters in my head. This has been extremely helpful to me. This allowed me to break a lot of my personal barriers. And it is a framework I use with lots of clients because it works. If you do it right, it takes a bit of work to set this up though. Now we've got to think about what the performer needs. What are they? Well, usually they need simple rules. They need repetitions under pressure. They need very clear cues. And they need emotional anchors to keep them grounded. Now I'll go over these and more in the next few videos. It's going to be really important, but it goes beyond this video. I will start though. To get you started, we're going to talk over the first one. How to create a plan that actually works, so remember this graph here. And remember this person planning. It is easy to make elaborate and grand plans, but we don't want to do that. It overlooks the reality of implementing the plan. Remember, complexity increases overwhelm. So we want to stay away from complexity. We need to do the opposite of what you want to do. We need to simplify to reduce overwhelm. You can think your new scope as a strategist is to design plans that are perfect for your performer with where your performer is right now. Now there is a full training, hopefully I'll link it somewhere here. And I'll be doing some more videos on this coming up in the next few weeks. It must be designed for the person executing the performance part of you. It must be easy to execute, and there should be no ambiguity. Because you don't want the performer saying, "Wait, did they say left foot or right foot first?" No distractions, nothing around you. You want them totally focused on the mission. Here we're going to talk about simple rules very quickly. How do you create simple rules? What are simple rules? They need to be clear and precise actions, extremely high clarity. I'll give you an example in a minute. Low mental effort, make it easy. They must solve a bottleneck in your plan, keep you really focused here. And they should move you in the direction of your goals. So it's a critical action, it's not just a random action. It requires a lot of design and thought here. It should act as a catalyst for a series of behaviors. I'll explain what that means in a minute, some guidance. Think about literally writing this out. Your rule wording should be fairly concise. It shouldn't be more than 12 words or so. It should not describe or explain a problem, it is just an instruction. That's how simple it should be. The rule results in the desired behavior. I've actually written an example just behind my head here, critical action. You want to start writing more. This could be for a story, or it could be for an article online or for social media. The critical action is to see words on the page, because that will mean you're moving towards your goal. The bottleneck is you probably have too many ideas floating in your head. Like how, what should I write, will people like it? And it makes you get overwhelmed. So the simple rule in this case may well be, open a blank Word document and press keys. That's what it says behind here. Let me give you a real-life example. We go back to Helen earlier. She wanted to start writing and putting herself out there. She wanted to put it on a blog and social media. The original plans totally overwhelmed her. Setting up a blog, website, Instagram, TikTok. I don't know if it overwhelms you now if you're in this category. It was horrendous for her. What we did was we focused on opening a Google Doc and typing. And during our coaching sessions, in a session, we shared screens and I helped her actually write the words out just to get going. That's how much hand-holding the performer sometimes needs to get them started. The crazy thing for her was we started this way. And I hadn't actually created a quick blog to publish. I searched on Google during the session. We opened a Google blog account while she was writing this. Then we actually went to publish it. We copy and pasted it in and published it. It was a really big deal for her, and she was like, wow. Oh, I've actually got a published blog that can be seen. And I was like, yeah, totally. Then we were able to scale this up really slowly, going up that curve of exposure versus time. Eventually onto TikTok, then onto Instagram, we did voice changes, cartoon avatars, and then she eventually got into the news. She built a following up, and it was kind of crazy. But we had to really be delicate with working that performer up to that point. Never triggering the overwhelm. Always doing something that was progressive toward her goal. It required quite a lot of creative thought and figuring out how to do this. Like for example, the voice changes and the cartoon avatars. We had to come up with ways to do that to make her feel safe. So if you're wondering how bad you're stuck here, I've got this assessment you can go and check out afterwards. It will help show you exactly where you're stuck. Not just about initiating action, but maybe in the direction you're trying to go. It will also help you understand what you need to start making progress. Okay, hope that was useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Lots more to come.